We've seen the same thing for 20 years. A group contracts a space based on a capacity number, and then we show up in the room and it's too small once you account for staging, screens, cameras, ADA, backstage, and real egresses around the walls. The planner wasn't wrong in the process, the hotel isn't always malicious, but the number is still fiction, and now everyone's trapped. Production or the DMC or the AV company becomes the bad guy because we're the ones saying, this just isn't gonna fit. But the failure here really isn't on the messenger. The failure is in the decision-making based on the fake math.
And the worst part about it all is the fake number. It doesn't just live on the hotel website, right? It gets repeated by platform after platform, and it's always treated like it's the truth. But before we dive into this topic, which we have so much to discuss on, here comes the rain.
All right, Chris, we're doing this. This episode is all about us and WIFT and event tech, and we're going to go hard at some things that the industry does wrong and make sure that we're fixing some things so folks can do their jobs better and be experts in their space. So we're going to follow the same format as normal, the storm, the umbrella, and the clear skies, but this one is self-serving, and we're going to tell you about the product that we have and the problem that we're solving. So event planners, production companies, DMCs, sourcing managers, let's talk about the capacity lie. And when I say the capacity lie, how many times have you contracted a space that said it could fit X amount of people, only to find out later if you put in one buffet or one table or one screen that it is significantly less? Capacity numbers online are rarely production aware or even DMC decor aware of what you need in this space. They're talking about wall-to-wall capacities, and we don't need a wall-to-wall room.
That's for sure, man. I couldn't say it any better. They always ignore the important things like stage decks, screen placement, camera lenses, aisles. They're not thinking of these things, right? And the wrong data gets copied into systems, and then it becomes the truth that every team plans on. So if we're starting by planning with data that is not truthful, it's bound to rear its head later on in the process. So we like to say the industry isn't short on room data, it's short on the truth.
That's for sure.
And that leads us to our tech conversation.
And I don't think anybody's being malicious in this process, right? Hotel can state capacities the way they do because you can use the room that way. You know, you can do full rounds wall to wall and have a reception, and it can fit that many people. But rarely is that what you need for your event. And what happens is we take this data and then it gets integrated into massive systems that we use for sourcing, and it just becomes the truth. And so we're relying on this data that says I can fit X amount of people in a space across the board that started with a falsehood because your needs are very specific and different. And what we've done is try to solve that pain, not only for the planner, the sourcing manager, but also for the hotel themselves. This is the first domino in the sourcing process. If we don't get the meeting space right, all the work that comes from that just gets generated in the process. We can avoid so much work. I've seen folks take what we would call like a dinner reception or even a general session and move it from a ballroom to an outdoor tent because they didn't have the actual space that they needed to get it done there. Not only does that cost money, but it costs time in work on the front end, and it costs money in the way of the gear that changes and the experience that you provide to your attendees. So you're sacrificing a lot if you get that first step wrong.
And let's be honest, right? We're both event professionals. We've been doing this for 10 plus years. All events are custom.
Yeah.
All setups are custom. And when you have a plan, 9 times out of 10, when you're on site, that plan goes out the window because something changed. There's not enough space. the Wi-Fi sucks, AV's not able to provide all the equipment they need. And now all of your tools that you use that only work when things go according to plan, now you have this technology and these tools that are not helpful to you in the moment, on the fly, as things are changing, as these dominoes are falling. And that's where we really pride ourselves on creating a tool that's flexible, and not only flexible, but it's accurate, because we are accounting for those moments where things aren't going to go as planned. You may have one specific layout that you've grown accustomed to, but maybe that changes based on your meeting needs. Maybe that changes on a pillar that you didn't think of in the meeting space. And that's where we really want to set ourselves apart from just another industry tool that only works in the perfect scenario, in the perfect setting.
Yeah. And the other piece is a lot of the tools in the industry right now are huge suites of software. They're enterprise level suites that think they have to do everything. We're pointing at one specific problem in the process, but that's one problem, if you solve it the right way, makes the whole process smoother, easier, more reliable, and sets you up to be the expert in the process. So when features pile up because procurement is looking for the best tool that's all inclusive, but you're only using one feature of that tool, you're just designing workarounds. You're paying too much for bloated software. You're still falling back on Excel spreadsheets and email chains and PDFs in the process, and it slows everything down. What we've done is point right at that specific problem of sourcing the meeting space, designing in the meeting space, and making sure it actually works, so that everyone can be an expert. And like Kris said, we've taken years, decades of experience in this industry and put it into a tool that allows you to not have to have decades of experience in the industry to now be an expert.
Most definitely. And JR, you hit home when you said the word workaround. That was like the first word that I learned when entering into the event management, event planning space. Everyone has a workaround for everything. And you start to realize that no one is doing things the way that it's supposed to be done in a event technology software, in a event tech platform. You often find planners, sourcing managers, AV partners, they're getting creative with getting what they need out of a particular suite of products. And to your point, they're only paying to use that one feature, which they have a workaround for, which isn't necessarily creating a efficiency, which is what we all strive for in this industry, right? So with WIFT, that's another thing that we focus the product on, to be not only efficient, but have meaningful impact. We don't want to bloat our system with a bunch of features that certain groups are going to be able to use. We want to make sure we nail the one core value for all planners. And it's answering that age-old question of, will my setup fit in this space? And why do I need to wait 7 to 10 business days for someone to give me a third grade drawing of if my setup will fit in the space? We're going to change all that with WIFT, and we can't wait to share it with you guys.
100%. And let's talk about cost. A lot of this bloated software is incredibly expensive. We're talking, yes. I've talked to corporate clients that are spending 6-7 figures just for the software. And then once you purchase the software, you need to pay for integration. You need to build the software around your corporation. And then you have to hire a staff to run the software. So it's not just the 6-7 figures you're paying for the software. Now you have 6-7 figures for the staff to run it. And all of a sudden, this one tool that was supposed to save you time, money, and energy now has a 3 to 4 person team assigned to it and is costing you $2 million plus a year in staff and software, whereas before you didn't have that cost at all. So this bloat and the need for these softwares that are so complicated to require training, certification, and on-site staff to run them is actually a barrier. It's not actually making people's lives easier. And these softwares have gotten so big that they now have their own gravity. And so when these corporate clients are looking at softwares in the meeting space, they gravitate towards these bigger ones because one, they can go to their leadership and say, look at the suite of tools that they have. And two, you can say everybody else is using it and not take a risk. And those two things have you trapped, and they know they have you trapped. And there is no motivation in there for them to upgrade or make their software easier at that point. They have motivation to make their software more complicated, add more features, make it more bloated, so it costs more year to year. And that's just backwards.
And I see this in the industry day in and day out. The amount of planners and sourcing managers that I've spoken to that pay X amount of dollars monthly to have a license to use a particular tool where they only use 2% of the features that are offered in that tool, it's mind-boggling. The amount of money that they spend annually just to be able to get a simple answer or source a particular meeting space. It's not justifiable from the planner side. The platform gets all of the revenue. Like you said, JR, they're not motivated to build features or tweak features that are going to be meaningful and bring impact. And it just bogs the entire industry down because our professionals are being forced to use something that is not giving them the value to make their lives easier. It's not giving them the value to streamline and make processes more efficient. It's fitting them into a box that everybody else fits into as the industry standard. And we're trying to break that cycle. We're trying to build something for planners by planners.
Yeah. Imagine trying to build a software that works for everyone in an industry where every event is bespoke. That just doesn't work. And man, okay. So where's the light at the end of this tunnel, right? So like we've talked about the problem. Let's talk a little bit about the solution. And again, we'll go back to the sourcing process. And the critical question isn't, is this room listed in the software? Is the venue listed in the software? The critical question is actually, will this property work with our reality, with our intentions for the event, with our strategic initiatives for the event? You cannot boil that down to a capacity number. Traditional sourcing flows take days in this process. And so even as big as some of this software is, you're going into a system that is basically a dressed up database with fake data, or let's not call it fake data that's not valuable. And then you're going out to these hotels for RFP. And then you wait and you wait and you wait. And you might get a notification in the system that your RFP has been accepted or is being reviewed, but you don't know the status of that. You don't even know if their property actually works for you yet. All you have is a number based on capacity or square footage that you think will work, only to find 3 to 7 to 10 to 14 days later that the hotel says, this space actually doesn't work for you. Or they get back to you and say, this is going to work great, trust us. And you say, I want to see a floor plan. And then you wait 3, 7, 10, 14 more days to get a floor plan because now they have to go to their internal team to have it built, who is also overworked and doesn't have time to do it. And all of this time, we're talking anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks can be shortened into 5 seconds with our tool. With WIFT, you can pick it up, go to the property that you want to go to, draw your meeting space in that space based on your objectives, move pieces around, edit the floor plan in real time without any training, and say in real time on the phone with that venue or with your stakeholder, yes or no, this will work. You just saved yourselves 3 weeks of work. And in an environment where I often see, not only are there folks planning 2-3 years out on events, there are folks planning 2-3-4 months out on events. And if you lose 3 weeks in the sourcing process, just selecting a space, what a grand waste of time when you could be into the planning process, when we could have solved that in seconds. So that is the light at the end of the tunnel here. That is the tool that we've built. That is the acceleration engine on the front end of your meeting and event planning process that will set you up for success. And in the end, at the end of the event, we'll have your stakeholders, the venue, the AV company, your production company, everybody hailing you as a hero because you picked the right space.
And to add to that, right, as planners, as sourcers, the first part of the process is finding the venue, right? And then when you reach out to the venue, as JR mentioned, you could be waiting 10 business days. Well, in the world of planning, a lot can change in 10 business days. Stakeholders can change. Initiatives can change. Seating styles can change. So by the time you get that floor plan back that you asked for from the venue that you've been considering for 10 business days, you may want to rearrange the entire room. Why, as a planner, do you need to rely on someone else's expertise to get you to that understanding? That is why we built this tool. We want to empower the planner to not be so reliable on others, but to get the valuable information they need to make the planning process more efficient. And the first part of the planning process is owning, will it fit based on your specific custom needs? And instead of relying on someone to draw that for you and wait 10 days, we wanted to give planners, as well as sourcing managers, as well as hotel owners, we want to give you the ability to play around in the room without having to learn how to draw in CAD, without having to take a course to learn social tables and drag and drop. We want to do all of the hard part for the planner to make it that much easier and take that many more things off of your list of things to check before you can go to contract with a space. And WIFT is going to do just that, because not only is it going to allow you to browse venues and find venues that you think may fit your space, you're also going to be able to generate a floor plan in seconds. You're going to be able to see an accurately depicted capacity of that specific setup. So not only are we going to tell you if it fits or not, we're going to give you a real number of attendees that fit with that given setup. If you want crescent rounds, we're going to show you what it looks like with crescent rounds. If you have different size crescent rounds, we're going to show you how the capacity changes with those different size tables. You may change your mind and say, we want to go full rounds. Well, now you don't have to call the hotel and say, hey, can you have Susie draw that floor plan again, but this time this way? You're going to be able to do that in seconds. Think about how much time and efficiency that creates in the very beginning stages of the planning process. And to JR's point earlier, you're going to avoid all of those bad dominoes falling. You're going to avoid having to put pressure on the AV guys that come in and say, there's not enough space to put this stage here. We're going to have to push the mics back a little bit. You're eliminating all of that. And now you don't have to give anybody else the credit other than yourself, because you have a tool that's building efficiencies for you, and you're relying on yourself as to relying on Susie that works at the hotel venue.
And not only that, how many of y'all planners out there, and I'm going to ask a rhetorical question because I know you're not on here, have felt that you've been held hostage by your AV company, that you've gotten quotes that you can't ascertain are correct, too high, too low, out of scope, in scope, or not? The next piece of this is, not only are you making that floor plan and you're drawing the gear that you need in the space to get the meeting done that you want to get done, we're providing you with the exact AV list that you need to get that done so you can export it out of the software and put together an AV RFP. But we've also provide industry standard pricing around that gear so that you have a clear expectation of what that quote should be. Because I've seen, and I'm sure you all have seen too, this wide gamut of pricing when it comes to the same event. You could send the same AV or production RFP out and get a number anywhere from 50,000 to 500,000, and then you have to dig into the details to figure out why. Get ahead of that, export the gear list that you need from our tool, put out an AV RFP, and then check it against that. And you will have a clear expectation, not only what your cost should be on the front end, but you can communicate that to your client. You can help them negotiate on your behalf. You can figure out who's charging too much or too little, and make the right decision around your AV and production partner in this process. So The promise of WIFT is huge. And I just want to wrap up what Kris said. 1, a confident answer in 5 seconds. Will this work? Production and AV aware. Does it fit in the space with the stuff that I need? Shareable output. Send that floor plan, send the AV RFP, look at the pricing that you need for those things. And 0 training. You can open our app and do all of these things without learning a single thing, I promise you. It is so easy to use, and that was the mission when we started. We need to make a tool that requires 0 training and 0 learning. All these floor planning capacity tools are inherently overcomplicated. Planners need a tool that's easy. They have the data, get the little bit of data that they have, and give them the answers they need.
And I'll say this before we move on to the next segment, but planners, imagine if you could go to a venue and tell them exactly what you want, how you want it set up, you know what dates you want it, and all they need to do is say yes or no. Instead, right now, what are we all dealing with? We got to call them. We got to ask them, hey, is this room available? Can it accommodate 500 people? We think it can, no worries. Okay, we'll go with your gut feeling there. Can you show me a floor plan? You're going to wait 10 days for that. We are eliminating the bog and the bloat, as JR mentioned earlier. We want to get you to these decisions super, super quick, but also with accuracy so that we cut down on the lead time that it takes for you to find your venue and move on to the next part of the planning process. And that's what WIFT is going to do.
Yeah, now I want to talk about a few specific people in the industry, and my goal here is to get you nodding so much you need a neck brace by the end of it. So first, corporate planners. I work with y'all all the time. Incredibly smart, powerful individuals. This tool's for you. There's no more guessing. There's no more over ordering. There's no more late surprises. And so what I see a lot on the corporate planner side is you're often partnering with a third party planning or sourcing agency. And you've put all of your chickens in that basket. And you've said, hey, planning agency or sourcing company, I need you to find a venue and a meeting space that fits for X amount of people. Here are objectives for the meeting. Go do it. And what they do is they go out to a system, a very bloated system, put out a blanket RFP, and anybody in the space or the city that you're targeting will respond if they say that their capacities fit. They haven't accounted for AV. They haven't accounted for your strategy. They haven't accounted for how you want your event to flow or work. All they're looking at is the raw data and numbers. And then what you typically get back is an Excel spreadsheet with 3 properties that they say, I think these can work. You're rarely provided a floor plan. You're rarely provided exact data around how they're going to sit. You've just been given a blanket square footage of meeting space, a total number of rooms, and whether it's close enough to the airport. And then you have to make a decision. Let's flip the script on that. If you use WIFT on the front end of this before you go to your third-party planning agency or your sourcing company, you draw the floor plan or the space that you need. You calculate the square footage that you need, and you figure out how many rooms that you need. Now you can deliver that information to your planning and sourcing company to specifically find properties in that space. The next thing is you can even use our tool to pick the hotels that you want. All you have to figure out is if they're available or not. No tool on the market right now has real-time availability for meeting space. It just doesn't exist. The API isn't out there. It's a manual part of the process. But if you can go and say, I want to look at these 5 hotels, can you just tell me if they're available? Now you've taken a process that takes weeks and shortened it to days or even hours, because all they have to do is pick up the phone and say, is the space available on these days? In fact, you could probably pick up the phone yourself and get the answer you need before you even start negotiating with these folks, and eliminate some of these expenses that we have for third-party planning agencies and sourcing managers. So talk about empowerment and expertise on the front end where you're saying, this is exactly what I need. I just need to know if they have the dates available. Let's go.
JR, you're going to ruffle a lot of feathers, man. You're going to put some people out of jobs. No, but in all seriousness, I like to ask myself this question as it relates to event planning. Why do you want to rely on so many others when you are the planner? I've asked myself that so many times. And in this industry, I see example after example where you have to trust others and their knowledge, their experience, their amount of the amount of meetings that they've done in a given ballroom to justify that they know what they're talking about. None of it is factual data that you can point to that says, I can confidently say this is going to work. Here's all of my money on the table. Mm-hmm. It baffles me day in and day out how much money is spent on contracting and sourcing and planning, all based on loosely accurate data. Mm-hmm. And JR, to your point, it's not just affecting you as the planner, it's affecting the attendee experience, it's affecting the on-site staff, it's affecting the production company, the AV company. It has a serious domino, and it is very expensive when these things arise on site. So to have a tool that empowers you as the planner to drive your own efficiencies, get answers that are not only quick, but truthful and accurate, you will look like a rock star to your stakeholders, to your peers, and most importantly, the attendee will have a better experience. They're not going to be shoulder to shoulder. You're not going to have people standing up in the back of the ballroom because we didn't plan accurately enough the seating style. All of that stuff can and will be avoided with WIFT. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is we're just getting started. This is just phase one. We have so many ideas that we plan to implement to make this process end to end better for all parties. And one thing I'll share just as a little tidbit, we keep saying that it'll take 10 days to get a floor plan from a venue, right? No one knows other than the venue why it takes so long to hear back on an RFP. That is completely managed and controlled by the venue for whatever reason they see fit. Well, for those that are running their own venues, we understand what your needs are. We understand that there's room blocks that need to be filled. We understand that there's food and beverage requirements that need to be met. We also have data and analytics on that to make your RFP proposals more accurate, to get you to yes or no quicker so that planners can move on and continue the planning process. So that is just a tidbit that I want to throw out there. This isn't all about the planner. This is about the ecosystem of event planning from end to end. And WIFT is built to make that entire process end to end more streamlined. And we can't wait to share it with you guys.
Yeah. We didn't just put this together in a week. Kris and I have been working on this since 2023. And in this process, we've piloted with many folks, including meeting planners and CSMs at hotels. And let me just say, we've talked a lot about hotels in this process. It's not your fault either, right? A lot of times the CSMs we're talking to are inundated with RFPs. The volume of information that's coming in and the work that they have to output is incredible. The ask internally just to go to somebody to say, I need a floor plan of this space for proof of concept for this client, like we said, can take days. Or we've talked to CSMs that are actually doing those floor plans themselves and they take hours. And instead, let's put this tool in your hand. Let's let you vet these RFPs very quickly so you can get to a quick yes or no. And if the answer is yes, then we put the work in. But if you can get to a quick no, like just eliminate that, save those hours of drudgery and set it aside. And it's okay that the answer is no. We know you have a volume of RFPs to get to. You don't have to squeeze yeses in. Use this tool to make the right decision, eliminate the work that you don't need to do, and get clients the right answers.
Couldn't have said it better. And to see everyone just kind of accept the reality of the way that the industry is today. JR and I, we came to the drawing table and we said, how can we make this better? What is it that will really drive value to planners, sourcing managers and those overall in the event tech space. And this is what we landed on. And we've gone to IMEX with this idea for the past 2 years. And we've shared it with planners on the floor. We've shared it with VPs of planning companies. And the response has been overwhelming that this is something that does bring value. And like I said before, we're just getting started, but the sky is the limit with this type of tool because it's putting all of the power into your hands. It's taking reliability of others and it's putting it all on your plate to be aware and have the ability to get accurate, concrete answers that drive real decisions and real contracts. And that will always be our primary focus. Real data, real accuracy, real results without having to go outside of your own core. That's what we want to achieve.
And no training in that process. So I'm over here with 180 Group. We're a production company. We see this issue all the time. Obviously, this was born from my experience. But this tool is for you all too. You production companies in the industry and AV companies in the industry. We know, and I know how long it takes to put CAD together to evaluate a space or to put the work together to just tell the client that doesn't work or that doesn't fit. We need to go another way. This tool allows you to do that in real time. So instead of saying, let me take a look at the space and get back to you and take a couple days, you can be on that call with your stakeholder, your corporate planner, the client, open up the app and say, what were you saying? Crest rounds of 6, you want 2-screen projection, how big of the stage do you want? And give them an answer in real time, make the decisions you need to make the adjustments you need to make so that you empower the planner to make those decisions without you taking hours of work. And now I'm not saying that those hours of work aren't necessary later. They're just not necessary at this point in the process. Let's draw the detailed CAD floor plans when we have a detailed plan, not when we're guessing at the detailed plan.
100%. And JR, I'm sure you have story after story, but how many times in your professional career with 180 have you seen a client go to contract, book a space, spend 5 to 6 figures on that space, only to have the setup not work for anything that was designed for 6 months, and you have to be the one to break them the news as the production company? How often does that happen?
This is not a self-serving inflation of the numbers. I would estimate that happens 7 out of 10 times.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a real problem.
Yeah. And do you get the blame as the production company? Is it your fault because you can't make it work? Or what is that?
We're not getting the blame for the space not working, but you know what happens is we have to take a space where they were anticipating a certain cost for audiovisual or production and adapt it. And so let me spin a scenario. You've contracted a space for 300 people and you want rear screen projection and the hotel told you it could work. We get in and we say, at rear screen, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. If you want this to look like you want it to look and we want to do it in the space, because we can't have the backstage that we need, because we can't take up the footprint that we need, we're going to have to use an LED wall. We're going to have to use different kinds of rigging. We're going to have to bring in different gear and labor. We're going to have to bring in extra stage hands to get that done. And in the end, we're delivering a cost that's higher because of the planning in the sourcing process. We chose the wrong space. So then we get the comeback that says, why is your number so high? And so we're taking a lot of that abuse on our side, and don't feel bad for me. Like, we can solve for it, certainly on a budget perspective, but to solve for it, that means you're going to make sacrifices. And that's the last thing you want. These things can all be avoided with the first step in the sourcing process.
Yeah. Yeah. And keep that budget low. Imagine coming back to your stakeholders and saying you saved on the budget instead of overspent.
Yep.
If that's even possible to think about. I know it's so much, everyone's always spending over budget or just hitting budget, and with little efficiencies like this day after day, week after week, we hope that this tool can help save some of those unexpected costs.
Absolutely. If anything, it will save you time and mental strain. And by time, I mean hours in the process. Not only hours for you as the planner, or the sourcing manager, or the CSM, or the AV company, hours for everybody, including your DMC, hours of back and forth with the banquet manager around what seating they can do and what fits, hours of back and forth with the CSM and the hotel to reassign space because it didn't work, and then hours of back and forth of redesigning AV and production because it didn't work. These things are tangible. They have real costs. And just think, if you can reduce this strain even by 25%, you're saving 50 to 100 hours per project. Just think of how much more efficient you could be, how much more time you could actually give to your clients, how much you could spend on the work that actually needs to get done to make the event great versus rejigging. It's just an amazing opportunity to save money across the board in this process. And like Kris and I have been saying, this is the first domino in the process. And if it falls, there are so many other things that fall from it.
Most definitely. And another thing that I want to call out to the listeners that are in the industry is, in our experience in piloting this product, speaking with a lot of agencies, speaking with a lot of planners, we've learned that planners often refer to planning agencies to help them find the right venue, as JR mentioned, right? In our experience and in our research, a lot of the leaders in these agencies have been there for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. They've been planning events. They know the events industry like the back of their hand. What WIFT is going to create is a community, but it's going to create a community of real data. Whereas currently, we are relying on Susie and Bob at Planner Agency A, who've been there for 20 years, that have done a meeting in the Omni in Dallas 20 times over the last 10 years. And they just know. They know what that space looks like. They know what can and can't work from trial and error. We're trying to eliminate having to rely on 20 years of experience that is it's not tangible. It's just that person knows what they know because of what they've been through, right? And I don't mean to take anything away from that. Like, that's amazing that you have that experience and that you can give people your gut reaction and your gut feeling and it work out, right? But we don't want to rely on that as a source of truth. Yeah. We want to create real data that anybody can reference a year from now, 5 years from now, because think about it. Your most popular ballrooms in your most popular cities, they're probably doing 50 to 100 events in those spaces a year, all different types. If all of those systems are run through WIFT, now you have a repository to be able to see hundreds of different setups that have worked in that space with different seating styles, with different AV, with different projection. You no longer have to go to Bob and say, do you think this will fit based on your 20 years of experience in working in that ballroom? If you have an enterprise license with us, you'll be able to see every meeting that was planned in that space, what event it was for, exactly how it was set up, what production was used, and then you can make an educated decision based off that, but it's tangible. It's real data, it's real capacities, it's real projector throw distances, it's real aisle spacing, fire code compliance. It's real data instead of having to go to a person and rely on what's up here. And that is the community that we are trying to build. And we are only going to be as successful and as valuable as our community. And it starts with all of you as sourcing managers, as planners, to trust in the process, create the real data footprint, and then learn from it so that we can better the system, we can better the tool, and then we can better the industry standard in which we work. And I would just encourage everyone to take that into consideration when they hear this, when they decide they want to try out our product. We are really looking to build and restructure how this industry operates, and we want to drive efficiencies and values that are meaningful.
Yeah. Kris, I think you hit on something really important here. And this message is for all the companies out there doing planning and sourcing. We've, in the process of piloting this and talking to planners and sourcing managers, we hear a lot of what Kris just said. We'll say, how do you know it fits? How do you know it's going to work? And they'll just say, I just know. And that's fair, right? So like these folks have the experience. They just know it's going to work. They've done it a million times. But that's not a sustainable strategy. As you build your organizations and you bring in new people and they have to learn from people that just know and they don't have a tool to rely on as a source of truth, you've now empowered these younger or newer folks to guess. And their guesses are going to be wrong. And they're going to learn through mistakes. And those mistakes are going to reflect on your organizations. Give them a tool like this that can empower them to make the right decision on day one, the same decision that your tenured folks that have 20 years of experience can now make in their heads without any training. That's what we're empowering them to do. That is a sustainable training strategy. That makes your team better on day one. And that makes you less reliant on these folks that if they walked, you'd be in trouble.
And full disclaimer, this is not a tool built to replace anyone. I like to look at this tool similar to how I look at AI. If you choose not to use it, you are choosing not to use tools that could drive efficiencies in your day-to-day processes. A 20-year seasoned event planner can still find value from this tool because it can validate all of the knowledge and experience that you've gained over the years to make your answer to an event planner that much more confident because it's data-driven, it's data-backed. It's not, I just know. This tool is not built to replace anyone in the industry. It's built as an aid to propel us to more efficiency, less unexpected fees, and getting to yes or no decisions much faster.
So as we wrap this up, here's my message. If you're a corporate planner, a hotel CSM, a sourcing manager, you work for an AV or production company, or you're with a DMC or anybody in the industry that's helping decide capacities or build out meeting space, our tool is the tool for you. Get on the boat now because other people will be using it and they will be better at their jobs immediately and you'll get left behind. So for all of y'all that are interested, we are going to launch on April 2nd. Between now and then, please go to wift.ai and sign up for updates. You can subscribe to updates on our website. We'll roll out some promotions to make sure that we're getting the first adopters in early and getting the right features that they need. And we're ready to hit the ground running. And we really, the true thing behind this tool is we honestly just want to make the industry better. We want this job that everybody says is hard and stressful and tough to be a little bit easier, because it is hard and stressful and tough, but it's time to stop making it harder on ourselves.
It's time to change. This industry has grown to great lengths, and it's amazing to see how far it's come. And in the same breath, I also see a lot of inefficiencies that we all accept because it's easy or it's because it's the standard. We are trying to change that, and change takes time. It takes a community, and we are reaching out to that community. As JR mentioned, anybody who is in the space of event diagramming, event design, capacities, floor plan generation, this tool is for you. And it's not going to be a one size fits all. We are going to continue to fine tune, build features that bring real value, but we can't do that without all of you. And we are so thrilled to share this with you all on April 2nd. But if you're listening to this, if you see this on YouTube, if somehow a sound clip pops up on LinkedIn and you're interested and this resonates with you and you think that this could drive efficiencies in your day-to-day, reach out to us. maybe we can get it in your hands before the official launch on April 2nd. And maybe you could be a founding pilot partner. We are still welcoming those who deal with these inefficiencies day to day. We know you're out there, and we know that no matter what tool comes to market, you're going to continue to plan events, host events, venues are going to book space. We know that the world's going to continue, but to have a tool like this that can really help cut down on some of the lead time to get to yes or no answers, it's invaluable to those in the space, and we want to get it in as many hands as possible. So encourage you to reach out. Appreciate you all for listening, and looking forward to the future of what WIFT can bring to the industry, and can't wait to share it with you all.
Yep. And to sign off, let me just say, stop buying platforms, start buying certainty. See ya.
It said it holds 500. Yeah. Then the stage walked in. Signed on a number, looked all good, right? Till you add the show on the screens and the sight lines. Now it's cables out of control, both in the way, and we'll figure it out. Turns into a bad day. I don't need a PDF next week. I need the truth in real time. Quick, 5 seconds, yes or no. Tell me what